I try to stay away from that, but I think I can't. I just can't keep doing this. It's what I've done since I was 21. When you reach your 80s, you decide enough is enough. He was once praised by Hollywood as the perfect face of American movies. He was a blonde guy with deep eyes who could be both intellectual and romantic. Robert Redford was the star of timeless movies like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and The Sting. He was also an Oscar-winning director, a risk-taking producer, and the founder of Sundance, a name that has become a symbol of independent filmmaking around the world. He had a job that lasted more than 60 years and was famous and powerful. Behind the crown of success, though, was a very different story, a youth full of sickness and sudden deaths, and a marriage that ended peacefully after 27 years. Along the way, he lost 2 boys, which left wounds that never healed. He also had a secret love that he hid for decades and only admitted to when he was almost 90 years old. Who is Robert Redford then? A Hollywood star who will never die, or just a man who has lost too many loved ones and has spent his whole life looking for peace but has never found it? If a role by Robert Redford ever made you believe in the beauty of old movies or touched your heart, please hit like as a respect, because behind the bright lights of Hollywood, he too carried tragedies that few people could ever understand. Robert Redford was born in Santa Monica, California, on August 18, 1936. Growing up in a simple working-class home during the Great Depression was hard for everyone in the United States. Charles Redford was his father. He was an accountant for Standard Oil, which was a steady job but never one with a lot of work. His mother, Martha Hart, was the heart of the family. She was kind and strong, and she taught her son that he was predestined for me thing bigger. Robert has always felt different. He wasn't interested in school and would often fall asleep in class, but drawing with a pencil or hitting a ball or tennis racket, he changed into someone else. Dedicated, energized, and never-ending. He only felt truly alive when he was doing art or sports, but quick loss soon cast a shadow over his youth. In 1945, when Redford was only 8 years old, his family got terrible news. David Redford, his uncle, had died in the Battle of the Bulge. David was more than just an uncle to Robert when he was young. His name was Hero, and he was a great athlete who spoke 4 languages well. He was also an adventurous and brave soldier. Robert learned his first lesson in grief when he died suddenly. Death could happen to anyone, even the best. After 3 years, tragedy struck again. Robert was 11 years old when he woke up one morning and couldn't move. His body was frozen, and his eyes were heavy. He was told he had polio, a disease that scared people in America before there was a cure. He was stuck in bed for 2 weeks, which was terrible for such a hyperactive child. He thought about whether he would ever run or paint again as he listened to his own breaths. He got better, but the image of being stuck in a weak body never went away. It taught him a hard truth early on. Life is fragile, and you need to be strong to stay alive. In 1955, they lost the most. Martha, Redford's mother, died at age 40 from difficulties after giving birth. She was only 18. She had given birth to twins 8 years before, but they did not live. The medical effects of that birth stayed with her until they killed her. Giving up his mother wasn't the only thing that hurt Redford. He was losing his best friend, the only person who always believed in him. Afterward, he remembered, "My mother always thought I could do something, even when I didn't believe in myself." Since she was gone, he lost his most important mental support. In his Irish and Scottish family, people rarely showed how they felt. Charles, his father, never cried or screamed. Relatives didn't talk about loss. People who were in pain kept quiet, and life went on. Redford had to learn how to deal with being alone in that setting. He didn't let anyone see his pain. That makes it a quiet strength. Over time, this inner discipline gave his art a depth that is very unique, the skill of showing pain through a look, a gesture, or an act. Losses like his uncle's death, his own illness, and the death of his mother left scars that never fully healed. He grew up in a family that didn't talk about their sadness, so he learned to swallow it whole. After the silence, he felt a restless need to fight, to break free from restrictions, and to make his own path in life in his early career. Robert Redford's childhood wounds made him jumpy and irritable as an adult. From the time he was a young adult, he felt like he needed to break out of the dull routine of everyday life and fight the constant feeling that he was in danger. When he was young, he did something to rebel. He wasn't known for being smart at Van Nuys High School. Instead, he was known for being sporty and stubborn. Natalie Wood, who would later become a big star and work with Redford, was one of his students. At the time, Redford had no idea that Hollywood would one day call him. Because he was so good at baseball, the University of Colorado gave him a scholarship. It looked like he was set for a safe career in sports. But Redford was really drawn to a different road. In Boulder, he didn't study or play baseball. Instead, he drank, went to parties, and raced fast cars. One time, his car flipped over while he was going 90 miles per hour, an accident that almost killed him that served as a stark warning of his downward slide into self-destruction. His careless behavior cost him his scholarship, and he was finally kicked out of school. At age 19, Robert Redford had gone from being a good player in school to dropping out and not knowing what to do next. But that fall made a new way. He left the United States and went on a pilgrimage through Europe to find himself. He learned painting in Florence, Italy, and made money by drawing pictures. In Paris, he hung out in bars where artists hung out, slept in a damp room, and ate stale bread to stay alive. Living in poverty gave Redford freedom and a sense of belonging in the art world. His painting turned into more than just a way to stay alive. It was something used to heal, and for getting glimpses of his true self. He came back to the United States after a few years, this time with more confidence. Not a sports star or an office worker, he wanted to be an artist. Redford went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, where he learned how to control his voice and facial movements. He also learned how to use his loss and failure as material for his performances. His painful past turned out to be his best quality as an actress. Before 1963, his big break came with Neil Simon's play Barefoot in the Park. His first show on Broadway was A Tall Story. As Paul Bratter, the young lawyer who had just gotten married, Redford brought charm, humor, and an honestness that made the role feel real. Every word and look made people laugh and then stop talking because they knew what was being said. Night after night, the theater was full, and Robert Redford's name was firmly stamped on the map of New York theater. Redford went from being kicked out of school as a kid to making a living as a painter in Europe to becoming a Broadway star. After that, Hollywood started to call his name, the star of the movie. Around the middle of the 1960s, Robert Redford started making his mark on Hollywood. In 1965's Inside Daisy Clover, he played a charming but sad young guy opposite Natalie Wood, who used to be his high school classmate from Van Nuys. The part made it clear right away that Redford was more than just good-looking. He carried weakness. Behind those bright blue eyes, is a quiet sadness. A year later, in 1966's This Property is Condemned, also starring Wood, he played a love that was broken by society. This solidified his reputation as a romantic lead actor who could make people feel both sympathy and sadness. When Barefoot in the Park came out in 1967, it really changed things, the movie version of the hit Broadway play that made him famous. As young husband Paul Bratter, Redford brought his wit and humor to the screen. This time, though, his charm touched millions of moviegoers. These movies made him one of the most potential new stars in Hollywood, and they set him up for the next level. In 1969, that jump happened. Redford played the Sundance Kid in the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, quick draw of a quiet cowboy who is very loyal. Along with Paul Newman's smart and talkative Butch Cassidy, they made a famous acting team. At a time when Hollywood was changing the Western, this movie not only brought it back to life, but it also made Redford a worldwide star. Sunshine was no longer just a character's name after that. It became a name that Redford kept for life. Redford didn't want to be limited to cowboy parts, though. Jeremiah Johnson saw him play a man who chose to live alone in the Montana mountains in 1972. In every still image, Redford showed a deep sadness that echoed his own feelings of losing a child. In the movie, Redford was the perfect example of the American spirit of independence. He was the lead in the harsh political drama The Candidate, 1972, which came out the same year. As young presidential candidate Bill McKay, Redford showed the dirty side of American politics, empty promises, and dishonest deals. At a time when war and loss of faith were shaking the country, the movie made Redford an unofficial voice for a generation of doubters. In 1973, there were two peaks. The Way We Were, which he starred in with Barbra Streisand, became one of the most famous love stories in movie history. Redford was both enticing and annoying as Hubble Gardner, the charming man who was too weak to accept Katie Streisand's fiery love, showing that he could make guys look both good and bad at the same time. A few months later, he worked with Paul Newman again in The Sting, a brilliant con artist adventure that won 7 Oscars. As Johnny Hooker, Redford was both smart and honest, drawing people into a game of lies with a mix of charm and tension. The movie did very well at the box office and won Redford a Best Actor Oscar nomination, which is an honor that any star would want. Redford was never happy with safe parts, so he went for darker roles. 3 Days of the Condor, which came out in 1975, was a paranoid spy tale that showed how worried Americans were after Watergate. As a CIA analyst being chased by his own agency, Redford embodied fear, confusion, and quiet defiance. This picture spoke to a country that was losing faith in its government. His next role was as reporter Bob Woodward in All the President's Men, which came out in 1976. Along with Dustin Hoffman, Redford brought the Watergate probe that brought down a president to life. With Redford at its heart, the movie was both a work of art and a political statement. In the early 1980s, he took on bigger parts. In Brubaker, 1980, he played a jail warden who was brave enough to stand up to a system that was broken. In 1985's Out of Africa, he came back as a romantic lead opposite Meryl Streep, set in the vast African settings. 10 Oscars were given to the movie, made Redford even more famous as the last great man of Hollywood movies. He was both strong and gentle. Even when he was middle-aged, Redford was still a big star in the movies. He took on a lot of different projects. Sneakers, 1992, a thriller about technology. Indecent Proposal, 1993, a movie that caused a lot of controversy because it showed a rich man giving $1 million for a night of love. And Spy Game, 2001, a tense spy drama with Brad Pitt. He never liked easy parts, though. In 2013, at age 77, he played the lead role in All Is Lost, a one-man movie about a sailor who gets lost at sea. His eyes, breath, and movements showed every bit of stress.